Hello, and welcome to our second installment of Women of the Week. Today, we are joined by Mariah and Beth. Welcome, Mariah and Beth. Can you please share your names, pronouns, and a fun fact about yourself?
I am Beth McCrae, and I would say my fun fact is that I have read over 88 books this year.
What are your pronouns?
Oh, pronouns, I'm sorry, she, her, hers.
And she's not lying about that many books.
I'm a nerd, and that's okay.
My name is Mariah Brooke. I use she, her, hers pronouns. And my fun fact is that I am expecting my first child in early January. So I'm looking forward to that.
Tell us about your career path and how did you get to where you are now?
So I grew up in the St. Paul area, went to college out east, came back home, and then worked in finance for about 10 years. So I was a financial advisor, helping people manage their money, helping people figure out what their retirement was going to look like. And for me, I liked the numbers piece and I liked talking with people, but then it got very boring. It wasn't satisfying my soul. So I found the world of development, fundraising, and thought, let me take a look at this. And I've been in that fundraising world now for 9 years and absolutely love the work that I do.
My career path kind of ending at this, both Beth and I work at the St. Paul, Minnesota Foundation. And so we're helping individuals kind of think through how they give their money away to different charitable organizations. And my kind of career path to get to that role, I was at the University of Minnesota and I kept hearing everybody say, you have to have an internship, you have to have an internship. And so I was like, oh my gosh, if I don't get an internship, I'll never have a job, I'll never get married, I'll never, all of these things. And so I went to a job fair that the College of Liberal Arts at the U was hosting and just kind of started talking to different nonprofits and ended up getting a fundraising internship at a local nonprofit. And so I did a couple of internships in fundraising, and I just really loved seeing people be open-handed with their resources and thoughtful about how they use what they've been given and the dollars that they have. And so then I started looking for jobs in that field and ended up at the foundation after I graduated.
And part of the work that Mariah and I do is that we work with donors, people who have some type of philanthropic intent or money that they want to give to the community. And we help them figure out the nonprofits that they want to give to. So, and we also work with nonprofits who have endowments with us, so monies with the foundation, and help them manage those monies and help them grow those assets too. So we kind of do two different things, helping donors give money to the community and helping those nonprofits that have assets grow those assets overall.
What is it like to be a female leader in your field?
It's really wonderful to be able to go out into the community and be able to talk to nonprofits, and those nonprofits know that you have their back. And it's also really wonderful to go out into the community and talk to donors and really have the expertise to know how to help them manage their assets overall, to help them grow their assets and help them grow and give that money out to the community. It's fun to go to different conferences and be able to be kind of the lead speaker at some of those conferences. We have one coming up in a couple of weeks that I know we're really excited about. It's wonderful also to have people look at you for your expertise and see you as the leader and see you as the visionary when it comes to the space that you're currently working in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we're in a really interesting field where from a percentage wise, there's actually more women in our field than men. And so we maybe as women don't face some of the same barriers or challenges that other fields do, or maybe not to the same extent. I think we both have experiences where that has been the case. And, even though on the percentage wise, there's more women in this space, a higher percentage of the executive leadership roles are still held by men. And so that's certainly something that we are mindful of. But it is cool to be in a field where women are taken as competent and are in leadership roles and we're the majority, because that's certainly not always the case.
What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned in your current field so far?
I would say be brave. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. And if you do make mistakes, learn from those mistakes and always listen to your gut, because your gut is always right. Every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
I think, when I was thinking about this question ahead of time, the thing that came to mind was just how important it is to find mentors and role models, and both on kind of the formal side. So somebody that you might regularly meet with, or you kind of have a agreed upon understanding that they are your mentor, but also casual and just people that you look up to, role models. I mean, Beth has certainly been that for me in my career. There's a 15-ish, year age gap between us and career gap. And so she's got way more years of experience. And so I've gotten to watch her, and she's invited me in, on so many different things to get to learn and observe. And so I think finding mentors and role models has been probably the thing that has been the most helpful for me in my career. And I think something I hope to be doing 30 years from now is still looking for mentors, because I don't think that's just a young person thing. I think it's a lifelong thing.
What advice would you give to young women?
There is a lot of pressure for when you graduate high school to figure out what you're going to do and what you're going to be. And you don't necessarily have to have that career path. And you don't necessarily have to have that plan. When I graduated high school, I thought, I want to be a doctor. But at the end of the day, once I got through college, I figured out I want to do something in working with people that doesn't necessarily involve medicine. And I studied different careers. I looked at different fields and found my bliss in actually working with people and talking to people. So don't necessarily pigeonhole yourself and stuff yourself into a box just because people want you to be in that box. Feel free, go out, explore, go meet with different individuals, have conversations with those people. They'll be willing to listen, be open, and maybe you can follow people around a day and figure out what they do and how they do it. But explore, find your bliss, find your passion.
I think one of the things that comes to mind is be willing to say no. And by that, I mean, it's okay to not take on more work than you can handle. It's okay to say, I went through this interview process and I thought I liked this job, or I thought it sounded interesting, but actually it's not going to be the best fit for me. And I know there's something better out there for me. So not to just, sometimes an open door is not meant to be walked through. And obviously it's hard to discern when you're meant to walk through something and when you're not. But, and then I think the other piece would just be kind of an echoing on the mentor thing, just finding advocates who are kind of in your corner that you can process and ask some of those questions. Hey, what do you think about this? Do you think that that's a good idea for me? I think that that's just a super helpful part in growing and developing and learning, but then also figuring out how to chart kind of a path forward.
How have you been strong, smart, or bold in your life right now?
I have learned to, like Mariah said, say no. I was a person who took on a lot of different projects, kind of to figure out what I liked, what made me happy. And in this particular time, I have learned that family is of the utmost importance. My job is important, it is great, but I need to figure out a schedule that's best suited for me and for my family, and say no. And my hours are specifically from 7 to 3. I have a 3-year-old little boy, and my husband is also working from home too. So for us, family time is of the utmost importance, in saying no and scheduling time and saying these are the hours that I work. And if things don't fit within that box, I typically say no to them. So, and that is okay.
I think it's been learning just to navigate kind of what it looks like to be pregnant during a pandemic, and asking for help when I need it, and being able to, I'm very similar to Beth, like take stuff on and kind of a go-getter. That's kind of my nature. And growing a little human is very tiring. And so there's just, you kind of just have limits on what you can do. And so learning to say no. And I think the times that I have said no, or I've communicated my needs, I have felt very confident and strong kind of in who I am. And so I think that that's something that I hope, we all, I think, need to look for what are the little silver linings of this pandemic. And for me, that's definitely one, is just learning to communicate what I need and kind of saying no and being okay with that.
What is the most rewarding part of your job?
I was sharing earlier that I grew up in St. Paul, and literally from the space where I sit when we were in the office, I can see the hospital where I was born. I can see the church that I used to attend, and I can see where I grew up. So for me to sit in that space and work with donors to give money back to the nonprofits that I have been to, that I know of like the back of my hand, is probably the most rewarding thing. I feel like I am literally giving back to the community that I grew up in, and it is the coolest thing of life.
I just love seeing all of the work that the nonprofit community is doing. I mean, that we have such a thriving kind of nonprofit sector in the Twin Cities especially, and just to see it kind of the way that the community rallies, and comes alongside those who are in need or is promoting something that's really great. I think that that's just a really sweet thing to get to have an up close picture of, and to see kind of some of the good in the community, because obviously there's a lot of challenges right now, and they're very real challenges. But to get to see some of the innovative things that are happening right now is pretty neat to get to be a part of.
How has your work changed your view of the community from when you were younger to now?
I didn't realize that there were people who cared as much. And seeing work from this side, you don't necessarily see how people give money. You don't necessarily see the impact of a program and how that program for a nonprofit has developed or was created from a potential donor. So for me, seeing the work that is done, the money that flows to different organizations has actually made me less angry, to be very honest, has made me less bitter, because there are times when I was younger where I thought people didn't care, people didn't help, people didn't know the situation. But seeing money actually flow to nonprofits and programs be created in order to help people and help individuals, it gave me a different side and a different perspective from that way. And I actually do see how much people care and how much foundations can care and how much donors can care. And you may not necessarily see those people who have given that money to a particular organization, but that it kind of warms my heart to know that people actually do care.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And for me, what comes to mind, I am a white woman, and I grew up in a predominantly white community. And so my concept of kind of philanthropy and what that meant and what that looked like was very much like you write a check and you give, or you tithe at your church or your place of worship. But there's kind of some distance between that. It's pretty easy and passive to write a check. And I think getting to work at the foundation has really helped me see the aspects of privilege that are a big part of philanthropy. And largely philanthropy is a pretty white institution. And that's something at the foundation that we talk about and are actively thinking about and kind of exploring how do we change the power dynamic there. And it's certainly not easy. And, I don't think we've landed on a perfect solution by any means, but I think that's been one area that for me, my perspective has changed.
Can you share about what your favorite part of your job is and what you think the most important part of your job is as well?
I would say my favorite part is one, working with Mariah, because I adore her, and I adore her soul, and I adore her being, and having a colleague at work that you can implicitly rely on and trust is everything. So that would be probably number one. But number two, and I would say our work with nonprofits has been absolutely soul satisfying. So working with different organizations in order to help them grow their money, and that can mean we have individual conversations with donors at their in their donor database, or working with them to create some type of strategy to help the organization grow and thrive more money, grow more money and then thrive because of that, the money that they're actually obtaining. So I would say that nonprofit work that we're doing is just beyond satisfying and my favorite part of the job.
I would echo the most rewarding part is probably getting to work with Beth and a whole number of really awesome colleagues that we have as well. But I think, again, you know, speaking from a white woman's perspective, having a colleague of color that we've built a relationship such that I can ask very honest questions, and I can, you know, just this week hey, can I ask a white girl question?
Yep.
Because
Yep.
and because there was a foundation of trust, that's appropriate for our relationship, and that is a huge gift to me. And I'm learning, and I still screw up, and I will continue to do so. But to have someone that just extends grace when they don't have to, because that's not expected and that's not required by any means, is a gift. Like Beth and I are very externally facing. We're working with the community, and what that often means is that people will come to us and they need something, and we might not actually be the content expert. So we have to go to someone in our finance department or someone in our investments department or someone, you know, kind of not in even in our own team. And so we need to have strong relationships with those individuals and with those teams. That's a huge thing that drives our work forward. And so being kind to them and, you know, going out of our way to be generous with our time and compliments, I think is important in helping get our work done.
If you don't want a specific career, but your parents keep pressuring you into a specific career path, do you think it's important to follow your own desires?
Oh, honey, follow your own desires. Be immensely happier. Listen to your gut. Listen to your gut. You will be immensely happier. They may be mad at you for a little bit, but they'll get over it. They're your parents. They'll love you.
I agree.
How has your work affected you outside of your professional life?
I think our organization has a pretty good work-life balance culture. So like Beth mentioned, like, you know, 7 to 3 is not typical working hours within our field. But we have a supportive boss who he himself has 3 kids and is navigating all of this. And he was a single parent at one time. And so he is a huge advocate for kind of get your work done in whatever way kind of works for you, especially during this season. You know, I think one way that it affects us though is sometimes we see hard things, or we know about hard things that are happening at nonprofits, and that can kind of wear on you when there's nothing you can do, or there's nothing, or it's not your place to do something. And so sometimes we take things home like that, or tough conversations with a colleague, and you bring that home with you. You know, that doesn't stop at 5 o'clock by any means. And so I think that can be challenging.
How has your work environment changed since the pandemic started?
We work at home, which is a great thing because I would spend 45 minutes driving to work and driving home from work. So it's nice to get that time back. I miss the interactions with colleagues where you used to be able to just pop over to their desk and ask them a question, but now you have to email everything. So it is great to be able to work from home and have that flexibility, but also be in a place, working for a place that understands that you may have, like my 3-year-old son may work at any time. That's just the reality of life. There are people who may have children come in and have homework questions that may be addressed too. So It's wonderful to work at an organization that truly understands that you have a life. We're in a situation that is absolutely horrible and people are being truly affected by it, but this is a job and we understand that you have to have flexibility outside of your work environment. And not a lot of people have the privilege or have the opportunity to work at places like that.
How did you end up studying what you studied, and how did that shape or help you get to where you are now?
So I was a history, pre-med, and African American studies major. So none of which related to what I am doing now in any way, shape, or form. It really, for me, was about getting the education, about learning about a variety of different things and finding things that I found a desire to learn. You can be an art history major and still have a career in the field that you want to be in. It doesn't matter your degree. It really just matters, do you have ability to network? Do you have an ability to find that mentor that can help you through a variety of different positions? Do you have a number of different individuals that you can turn to at some point in time and ask them about their career and figure out, okay, that's the career that I want to have. Or, you know what, we'll go down this path for a little while and then we'll pivot to another path later on down the road. So just being able to be flexible, being able to network, being able to find that mentor who can help you and guide you through that process is all you truly need to have.
Yeah, I would agree with that. When I was a freshman in college, I was really unsure what I wanted to do. And so I was kind of trying to figure out what my major would be. Somebody who worked kind of at Target headquarters said, over half the people that work at Target don't have a business degree. And I remember that just being kind of mind-blowing for me, like, wow, I can pick something that I care about or I enjoy studying in college. And for me, that was communications. Yeah. Can I find connections to how that ties to my career? Yes, but it's not super direct. There's only, if you want to be a nurse, you need to have a nursing degree. If you want to be an engineer, you need an engineering degree. So there are certain things that you need to have tied to, but I think both of us are huge proponents of the liberal arts and just kind of those broad degrees. And so,
yeah, ask yourself what you truly like. Yeah, ask yourself what floats your boat. What is your passion? What do you enjoy to do? And usually you can find a career based upon that. You can find people that you can network with and talk with and follow around. And there are a lot of people who are open to that.
How do you think success has come to you? Do you think your background, ethnicity have allowed you to get to the point where you are now in life?
I would say absolutely yes. Yes, and I found an individual when I, again, was in finance for about 10 years, and I said, I'm tired of this. This isn't nurturing my soul. And I met a gentleman, Chris Clark, who helped me pivot from one career to the other, because he's an individual who was in finance for 10 years also, and was in the world of fundraising. And he understood my skill set. He understood my ability to build relationships with people. He understood the way that I could move from one field to another very seamlessly. And having him understand the work that I had done and understanding me as an individual too was absolutely life-altering for my career, and life-altering for me in the sense that I could build something that I could follow my bliss and follow my heart and follow my soul and follow my passion. So finding Chris saved me and helped me tremendously go from one field to the other seamlessly.
I have had a lot of doors, whether they were intentionally or unintentionally open to me because I'm a white woman. I grew up in a community where it was expected that I would go to college, where I had support applying for scholarships to go to college. I could name the number of things that have absolutely, that I know that my whiteness has opened doors and has helped me be successful. And my hope is that as I continue learning and growing and understanding my whiteness, that I'm able to be an ally and an advocate when somebody wants me to be that for them, and has asked me to step into that role on their behalf.